Hi everyone, I'm jumping on to discuss the topic of sticking in your own lane as I've been on this theme of the empath. I think I want to close the loop with this one on it. I'm going to be working on something for the next few days, and I won't be having much extra time to jump on and produce videos, which is actually a good thing. Given that I think it's really healthy for content providers to be leaving room for people that are tuning in that aren't yet creating content, to have space between all of this stuff coming at them. I remember before I started producing content 10 years ago, it was easy to get captured, especially being still working through a lot of those empathic things that I had to work through, such as creating boundaries with myself, self-regulation, the emotional imprints. I'd spend a lot of time just observing what other people were doing. And I realized at one point that, you have these people that sort of rise up based on the fact that, they have convictions, they have something they want to share, and they are also looking for parts of them, the shadow, looking for validation, looking for approval, and we're just pumping out content endlessly. And although we always go into the victim mindset before we become empowered, in that victim mindset, when I was still kind of coming into my own sovereignty with everything, I felt like it was up to the content creator to be releasing content in a way that would allow their the people within their tribe, their followers, if you will, to really have provide a good example of pacing that information out. And then of course, as I came into my power, I realized it's really up to each individual, that's observing, to go through those lessons and learn how to self-regulate and really pick and choose what information they want to take in and at what time. But the advent of just coming into the internet, and there's just so much, it's easy to listen to content all the time, right? And to become addicted to that. It is an attention economy. And so I think it's, really healthy just to bring this topic forward again about self-regulation with regards to taking in information, especially in the realm of those that consider themselves to be an empath. It is really easy to use that as a crutch to not move into the self, to not discern the self from the other, and to kind of be pulled in all these directions. And so I think that there is, moving from the collectivist mindset and moving into individuation is part of these trials, right? Is part of these initiations that we go through. Having to individuate means understanding where we are simply just taking information in and then reacting to that and allowing that information that we're taking in to create the self, right? That's not individuation. Individuation is really about discerning, through information we take in, but also through being proactive in producing content or writing or in discussions with other people, what the self truly understands and discerns and feels about any given situation. So there is a healthy aspect to collectivism, and I'd say that is tribalism. You know, if we individuate, if we're all individuating in this era of individuation, you know, there is that element of losing the tribal aspect. And it's, you know, what Rudolf Steiner spoke about with the war of all against all, right? If we're just all completely individuating en masse, all at once, there is a separation, a mass separation that occurs between everybody. And without the tribal mindset, it's really hard to work together, right? Because tribalism provides the framework for people to take what they're learning and put it into action because they have a role within their group. So I think individuation has its benefits, and it is necessary in order to awaken from societal conditioning. But I believe there will be a return, like a balance. Again, it's all about that balance and coming back into balance with ourselves and vis-a-vis society and groups, where we individuate and then we come back into a healthy form of community, healthy form of tribalism. But we're not coming back into it from a place of, you know, needing to belong, like really needing to belong, and that controlling our own individuation process, right? So we have to navigate carefully. You know, we're not going back into it to gain approval, right? Because doing the work of individuation allows us to know ourselves and then have confidence in that and have a healthy sense of self and self-worth in what we're bringing forward. So there's the individuation is needed, but then there is also at one point, you know, in the future, I'm not sure when, I think it's different for everybody, and depending on, you know, when they've done that individuation work and where they're at, there is a return back into the tribal circuit. And but when people first start, right, going on this process, they're just observing others. They're watching. They're not they haven't individuated yet, and they're just sort of allowing, you know, a panoply of different opinions and people producing content to affect them, and to take in all this information to start discerning what they're going through. And they usually go through certain stages with that. And, you know, the first is the imposter syndrome, feeling like everybody else knows more than them. And then slowly, as they move out of victimization with the world and come into self-empowerment, they realize everybody's got information based on their soul blueprint that they're bringing forward, that they can bring forward, that allows for the healthy development of society, right? And of consciousness to blossom forward. But going on the internet at the beginning as an empath, I remember it was interesting because, you know, we're dealing with a lot of different things. And I think we can easily get confused when it comes to individuation and the collective unconscious. And I remember producing content and then putting it out there, and the next day going on the internet and looking, you know, at all these people in the community, in the tribe, in society, and you know, a great majority, I felt like a great majority were responding to me, right? Responding to what I was putting out. And this is, you know, part of also developing that spiritual lens in the world, is to understand that, you know, I was like, this is crazy. This is like, I started godheading, you know, like everybody's responding to me. And then I began to experiment with it. And I decided to pull the reins back on what it was that I was releasing out into the public. And I'd simply write it down in a book, on a piece of paper. I'd write down all my thoughts, ideas, concepts that were coming through in those moments. And I'd refrain from releasing that content. And the next day, when I'd go and observe the collective, observe what people were pushing out, the theme was always similar. So whether or not I was participating, there was always specific themes rising from the collective unconscious into awareness, right? Into the light of awareness. And that just blew my mind. But it also, there was a sense of relief that came with that. Because whether or not we are paying attention or participating, this great wheel of time, of collective unconscious, of collective consciousness, of awareness is turning. And it's turning out certain concepts, connected to the cosmic clock and the astrological clock. And certain things are meant to come forward, and we can either participate in that or we can be silent and just observe. And so there was a huge relief in understanding that, because it was easy to get lost in that. Like, you really feel there's an antagonism that can come out of that, because people feel, when they're awakening, they feel like everyone is really responding to them, and then they react to what they believe another person is in reacting to them in the content that they created. And then it just goes on, and there's this antagonism and lack of cooperation that develops. But it's the Maya, it's the illusion, it's not real. What's really happening is, there is a divine intelligence at play, and that divine intelligence is moving things to the forefront, whether or not we participate in it. And it's going to be working through. The divine intelligence is bringing things forward, and we're kind of like, players, right, on that board. And individuating is moving through these stages where, you can step back and then observe that divine intelligence and know that as you individuate, part of you is still connected to the collective unconscious. So part of you will always be participating in a tribal sense with bringing certain ideas forward based on, the soul groups that you came in with and who you're connected to. And so I think this is a really important part to discuss for especially the empaths and the enmeshment, the lack of boundaries that people have. They really feel this antagonistic force coming at them when they start producing content, just simply based on the fact that it appears like everyone is responding to them. And that can create all sorts of, feelings of, wanting to seek approval, right? And trying to get needs met based on validation. But really coming back into self is playing. That's why I really promote experimenting with the field and getting to see, these things for yourself, to really understand that this wheel's turning, this divine intelligence is happening, whether you participated in it or not. And there's a beauty in that, and there's also a relief in that, and there's also it's a real sense of tribe, right? It's a real sense of different groups moving in certain directions to bring information forward together, and that we're not doing things alone. And it has nothing to do with the ego, right? Because the shadows of the ego circuit are the shadows that will bring us into decoherence, with everything happening. So I'm going to keep this message short and just close it off by mentioning, this message is really about, sticking in your own lane, and sticking in your own lane in terms of individuation, in terms of, creating healthy boundaries as an empath, is about knowing that this greater intelligence is moving, right? Despite what you choose to do, right? Despite what content you put out, despite, your process. Like, everything is moving in perfect harmony to bring everything back into balance. So sticking to our own lane is really about, being able to get into a healthy place with yourself, with your inner process, where the connection is within yourself, and the connection is to the divine. And that leaves this really comfortable space around you to not be enmeshing with everybody else, and just to, of course, participate, right, in dialogue, to participate in discourse. But that participation doesn't depend on you observing others. That participation is always going to happen as you continue to move into the self. So, it's about just going into yourself and really extracting, like, what it is that you want to bring forward, and discerning what it is that you're feeling vis-a-vis yourself. Like, it's all about the inner movement and what's coming up for you. What unconscious parts of self are coming up, what latent potential is coming up, and following that thread within yourself, which is the mystical path. It is, your connection to the divine, and it's what creates that synchronistic path within, not without, within. I think that's the key to staying in our own lane and bringing forth what is necessary into reality, so that we can move awareness forward, right? And if we're focused on the inner path, on the inner movements, and we self-regulate, we take healthy breaks from, other people's content, what they're creating, what other people are saying, that's when we can really bring forward what we need to bring forward in a healthy, creative way, that is based on our individuation process and our path, our connection to the divine. So I stopped paying attention to, any content creators where I felt any little inkling of antagonism, like years ago. And what I noticed is that there's still this perfect harmonious conversation happening. The meta conversation is always happening, whether you pay attention to it or not. So that relief, that should allow, a certain amount of relief for empaths, that it's not, I'd say that paying attention to it, and the aspect of it that is antagonistic, like, that's part of Wetiko, right? That's part of what's meant to distract people from their path, from their individuation. So coming back into self really allows us to just stay focused on what we're doing. And when we see the mirror come up, it's like the cosmic joke. There's, it's funny. It's like watching the cosmic play, right? It's watching divine intelligence at work, and the distinction between self and other can grow in that space. It's a really healthy space. And that's where I think true individuation really happens. And a lot of fears, a lot of the ego constructs around, the discourse and all of that dissipates the further we go into self. So this is something that I had to go through. It's, I think, part of the initiation that any person has to go through that awakens to these different layers and these astral layers. And that happened for me between 2017 and 2020. And after 2020, I really was able to sit in my seat, right, in my core, and start working from that place and not be as affected by all the movements around me. So that's when all the healthy boundaries I was able to develop and stuff come up. But it's an initiation, and it's a call. It's you're calling back your power, and you're coming into greater empowerment with the self. Once we move into that process, right? So I thought that was important to bring forward. I will be working on something this week, so I probably won't be putting anything else out, but I will come back in a week or so with a little more sharing. I'm wishing everyone a great week and a great weekend. You could reach me at inspiringplayfulevolution.com. Take care.